My wife cheated with her coworker for 3 months while I was traveling for work. I followed her one night and found her kissing him at his door. I filed for divorce immediately, and she was left destroyed. I'm 34 years old. I work in sales for a tech company that has me traveling like twice a month, and what happened a few months ago basically destroyed my nearly 10-year marriage. The truth is, I'm still struggling to process everything, but I need to get it out of my system because there are days when I wake up and still can't believe it actually happened. I guess I should start from the beginning. Or I mean, not from when Melissa and I met. That was like 12 years ago in college. But from the moment everything started going to shit, even though at the time I had no idea. Melissa and I got married when we were like 24, both fresh out of college, full of plans and all that crap. She got a job in human resources at a medium-sized company, like 200 employees or something, and I got into sales where I am now. The first few years were good. You know, the usual stuff. We worked a lot, went out on weekends, watched shows on the couch, talked about having kids eventually but never rushed into. We bought a house like 5 years ago in a quiet suburban neighborhood, nothing fancy but decent, with 3 bedrooms and a small yard that Melissa wanted to plant flowers and stuff. I traveled quite a bit for work, always did, but it was never a problem, or at least that's what I thought. Melissa had her friends, her job, her routine, and when I came back from trips, everything was the same, you know what I mean? There were never any signs that anything was wrong, until there were and I was too blind to see them. The day everything changed was a Tuesday. I remember it perfectly because I was supposed to be away until Thursday. I had a conference in Chicago, one of those boring 3-day things, where you basically pretend to pay attention while checking your phone every 5 minutes. But it turns out they canceled the 3rd-day sessions because the main speaker got sick or something, so I decided to take an early flight and come home Tuesday afternoon instead of Thursday. I didn't tell Melissa anything. I thought about surprising her. You know, showing up with flowers or something cheesy like that. I landed around 3 p.m., went through the airport, picked up my luggage, and drove back home. The drive from the airport to our house is like 40 minutes, and the whole way I was thinking about what to order for dinner, whether pizza or Chinese food, stupid stuff like that. As I was getting close to the neighborhood, I passed by a gas station that's like 3 blocks from our house, one of those big stations with a convenience store and everything. And that's where I saw Melissa's car. A blue 2018 Honda Civic. I'd recognize it anywhere because it has this kind of ugly beach sticker she put on the rear window years ago. It was parked at the gas station, but the weird thing was that Melissa was supposed to be at work. It was Tuesday at 3:45 p.m. What was she doing there? I thought maybe she had gotten out early or had some meeting outside the office. At that moment, I didn't think much of it, but something in my stomach felt weird. I kept driving toward the house, and when I got there, her car obviously wasn't there. I went in, left my suitcase, and sent her a message, something casual like, "Hey babe, how's your day going?" And she responded like 10 minutes later saying she was super busy at the office, that she had a lot of meetings, the usual. But then I remembered the car at the gas station. I called Melissa. It rang like 5 times before she answered, and when she did, she sounded nervous. I don't know. Her voice was off. I asked her what she was doing, and she said, "I'm at my desk reviewing some documents for tomorrow. Why?" I told her nothing, just wanted to hear her voice, and she said, "Okay, babe, I have to hang up. I have a call coming in." And she hung up. And I just stood there in the kitchen thinking, what the hell just happened? Because Melissa had never, and I mean never, cut me off like that. Something was wrong, but I still didn't want to believe it, you know? It's like when you see something suspicious, but your brain tells you, no, you're overreacting, everything's fine. I decided to go to the grocery store. That's like 2 blocks from the gas station where I'd seen her car. We needed milk or something, any excuse to get out and clear my head. I was driving down the main street, and I saw Melissa's Honda pulling out of the gas station parking lot and speeding up, like she was going fast, faster than normal. I followed her, staying like 2 cars behind, feeling like an idiot but unable to help myself. Melissa drove straight to the grocery store, parked, and went in practically running. I saw her through the store windows, grabbing things at random, walking fast through the aisles, and after literally 5 minutes, she came out with 2 bags. She paid at the express checkout, went back to the car, and drove back toward the gas station. She parked in the same spot as before and just sat there. I was in my car like 4 spaces away, crouched down like an idiot so she wouldn't see me, and I watched her take out her phone and type something. Then she started up and left toward her office, I guess, because she took the right direction. I went back home with my head spinning. Melissa got home around 6:30. Her normal time, came in with the grocery bags that I already knew she'd bought, and acted like nothing happened. She gave me a kiss, asked me how my day had been thinking. I was still in Chicago, and when I told her I'd come back early, she froze for a second. Just a second. But I noticed it. She said, "Oh, what a surprise, babe. Why didn't you let me know?" And I told her I wanted to surprise you. And she smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. We had dinner, watched TV, everything normal. But I couldn't stop thinking about that hour and a half where her car was at the gas station, and she told me she was at the office. The next few weeks were weird. Melissa started coming home late from work, like 7:30 or 8 p.m., saying she had new projects, more responsibilities, meetings that ran long. She was glued to her phone constantly, and if I walked into the room while she was texting, she'd close the screen quickly or flip it face down. She started putting her phone face down always, even when we were having dinner, and notifications would come in all the time, making the screen light up, but I couldn't see what they said. One night I asked her who she was talking to so much, and she said her friend Sarah, who was having problems with her boyfriend, which made sense because Sarah always had drama. But something about the way Melissa said it made me doubt. I had another trip scheduled, this time to Boston for 4 days, and before leaving, I told Melissa I'm going to miss you, and she said, "Me too, babe," but she said it, looking at her phone. I left Monday morning, got to Boston, did my meetings, and the whole time I was thinking about Melissa and the lies and the car at the gas station. Wednesday night, around 11, I sent her a message saying, "Hey babe, how was your day?" And she responded around 11:45 saying, "Sorry, just saw this, I was asleep." But I had seen that she was online on WhatsApp around 11:30, so she wasn't asleep. She was ignoring my messages. I came back from Boston Thursday night. Melissa picked me up at the airport, and on the way home, she was quiet, looking at her phone at every red light. I asked her if everything was okay, and she said yes, just tired from work. That night we had sex, but it was mechanical, emotionless, like she was fulfilling an obligation. The next day, Friday, Melissa told me she had to stay late at the office, that there was an audit or something, and they needed to finish some reports. She said she'd probably get home around 10. I told her, "Okay, grab something to eat, don't worry about cooking," and she left. Around 8 p.m., I was at home watching a movie, and something clicked in my head. I grabbed the keys, got in the car, and drove to Melissa's office. I got there around 8:30. The building was half empty, but there were some cars in the parking lot. Melissa's blue Honda wasn't there. I drove around the building twice to be sure. Her car wasn't there. I sent her a message, "Hey babe, how's work going?" And she responded, "Super busy, babe. I think I'm going to be here until 11. And I was literally looking at her empty parking space while reading that message. I don't know what happened to me in that moment. I think it was pure adrenaline. But I started driving around the area looking for her car. I checked the grocery store, the gas station, some restaurants she liked, nothing. Then I remembered that Melissa had mentioned months ago that a new coworker, Brandon, lived near our area. She mentioned it in passing once because he had asked her for directions to a restaurant. I didn't know the exact address, but I remembered the street name because it was the same street where my dentist lived, Maple Street or something like that. I drove toward that area. It was a neighborhood of small houses, like duplexes and apartments, and I started checking the streets looking for the blue Honda. I found it parked in front of a small beige house with a black car, a Nissan Altima, in the driveway. I parked my car like half a block ahead, on the other side of the street, with the lights off. It was 9:15 p.m. I sat there not knowing what to do, feeling like a stalker but unable to move. Around 9:45, the door of the house opened, and Melissa came out. Melissa came out laughing, with her hair down, something she never did when she left work because she always wore it up in a bun. And behind her came a guy, Brandon, I guess. Tall, like in his early 30s, with a casual shirt. They stood in the doorway talking, and he put his hand on her waist. He put his damn hand on my wife's waist. Melissa leaned in and kissed him, It wasn't a quick kiss, it was a real kiss. And then she laughed again and walked to her car. I took out my phone and took pictures, like 5 or 6, of Melissa and Brandon at the door, of him touching her, of her kissing him. My hand was shaking so much, I could barely keep the phone still. Melissa got in her car and left. I stayed there another 10 minutes, breathing like I'd run a marathon, feeling like someone had kicked me in the stomach. Brandon went back inside his house and closed the door. I drove back to my house, got there around 10:30, and sat on the couch to wait. Melissa arrived around 11:15, came in with a fake smile, told me, "Sorry, babe, the audit took longer than expected. I'm exhausted." And I just looked at her without saying anything. She went straight to the shower. Something she never did when she came home late from work. She always left it for the morning. But that night she needed an urgent shower. I stayed in the living room looking at the photos on my phone over and over, feeling like I was living a nightmare. The weekend was torture. Melissa acted normal, making plans to go to the movies, suggesting we invite friends over for dinner, being affectionate but in a way that felt forced. I couldn't confront her yet, I don't know why. I think part of me still hoped I was wrong, like the photos on my phone were some kind of hallucination. On Monday, Melissa went to work as usual, and I called in sick. I drove to Maple Street and parked in the same spot as before. Around 12:30 p.m., Melissa's blue Honda appeared and parked in front of Brandon's house. Melissa got out of the car with a Panera bread bag or something like that, knocked on the door, Brandon opened, and she went in. She stayed there until 2:30, so her lunch hour plus an extra hour that clearly wasn't for eating. I did the same thing on Tuesday. Melissa arrived at Brandon's house around 12:45. Stayed until 2:15. On Wednesday, I decided not to go because I already had enough evidence, enough photos, enough proof that my wife of almost 10 years was cheating on me with her coworker. I was surprisingly calm at that point. I think I'd already gone through all the stages of grief or whatever, and the only thing I felt was determination. I needed to confront her, but I needed to do it right. Thursday night, I waited for Melissa to get home from work. She arrived around 7, normal, greeted me, asked me how my day had been. I was sitting on the couch, and I told her, "We need to talk. Sit down." She sat with a confused expression, like, "What's wrong?" And I took out my phone and showed her the photos. The first photo was of her and Brandon at his front door. Melissa went pale, like all the blood drained from her face, and said, "Christopher, wait, let me explain." And I said, "You don't need to explain anything, Melissa. I know exactly what's going on. I know you've been fucking Brandon. I know you've been lying about staying late at work. I know you go to his house on your lunch break. I literally have photos from 4 different days." Melissa started crying, those dramatic tears that make you feel like you're the bad guy, and said, "Christopher, I'm so sorry, it was a mistake. Please don't do this. We can fix it. I love you." And I just laughed, because the audacity of saying, "I love you" after months of lies was almost comical. I asked her how long, and she stuttered and said like 3 months. And I said, 3 months, Melissa, 3 entire months of lies and cheating and sex with another guy. And she said it was a mistake. I was confused. I felt lonely because you travel so much. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I told her, "Don't blame me for your decision to cheat. I travel for work, not for fun, and I always came home to you thinking we had a solid marriage while you were in another man's bed." Melissa kept crying and begging, saying she would end things with Brandon, that we'd go to couples therapy, that she'd do anything to fix this. I just stood there looking at her and felt absolutely nothing. Like all my feelings for her had evaporated the moment I saw her kiss Brandon at that door. I told her, "Melissa, it's over. This is over. I don't want to try to fix it. I don't want therapy. I don't want to hear your excuses. I want a divorce." She started screaming, "No, please don't do this," that I'd regret it. And I simply got up from the couch, went to our room, grabbed a suitcase, and started packing clothes. Melissa followed me to the room begging, grabbing my arm, but I ignored her. I packed enough clothes for a week, grabbed my laptop, my important documents, and left. Melissa was standing in the living room, crying and screaming while I walked out the door. I got in the car and drove to Lucas's house, my friend from college. I'd sent him a message like an hour before, telling him I needed a place to stay, and he said, "Sure, man, whenever you want." Lucas lived alone in a 2-bedroom apartment like 20 minutes from my house, and when I got there, he was waiting for me with 2 cold beers and without asking invasive questions, which was exactly what I needed. That night, I told Lucas everything, showed him the photos, and he just shook his head saying, "Man, I'm so sorry, what a mess." I slept like 3 hours because my phone wouldn't stop ringing with calls and messages from Melissa. Like 50 messages saying, "Please, Christopher, let's talk. Please don't do this. I love you so much." I made a mistake, and more manipulative crap. The next morning, I blocked her number, blocked her on WhatsApp, on Instagram, on Facebook, everywhere. If I was going to end this, I had to do it for real, without giving her the chance to drag me back with fake tears and empty promises. During the next week, I went back to the house like 3 times when I knew Melissa was at work to pack more stuff. Each time I felt like I was in a stranger's house. Like all those years of memories meant nothing now. Lucas helped me move my bigger stuff. My desk, my Xbox, boxes of books, basically all my shit. Melissa tried to contact me through mutual friends. Her sister Natalie called me like 5 times telling me that Melissa was devastated and that I should give her another chance. And I told Natalie that if Melissa was so devastated, she shouldn't have been fucking Brandon for 3 months. I hired a lawyer, a serious woman in her 50s, who told me that with the photographic evidence and testimony, the divorce would be relatively simple. With no kids involved, things are less complicated. Melissa received the divorce papers like 2 weeks after I left, and according to my lawyer, she had a breakdown in her lawyer's office, crying and saying this couldn't be happening. But it was happening, and I was completely at peace with my decision. The next few months were a blur of legal paperwork, dividing assets, deciding what to do with the house. Melissa wanted to keep the house but couldn't afford the mortgage alone, so we agreed to sell it and split the proceeds. I moved to a 1-bedroom apartment near Lucas's office. Nothing fancy, but it was mine and had no memories of betrayal. I went back to doing things I'd stopped doing, hanging out with friends, playing video games until 3 a.m., going to the gym at 6 a.m., things that Melissa always criticized, saying they were immature. Natalie tried to organize a meeting between Melissa and me like 3 months into the divorce, saying Melissa needed closure, and I said to talk to my lawyer. I had nothing to say to Melissa, nothing I wanted to hear from her. According to Natalie, Melissa had ended things with Brandon like a week after I confronted her, saying she felt guilty and confused. But honestly, I didn't give a shit what Melissa felt at that point. The divorce was finalized like 5 months after I left the house. It was quick because we both wanted it to be over, I guess. Melissa kept her car, her furniture, her clothes. I kept my car, my computer, my books, and we both split the money from the house sale 50-50. There was no drama at the final signing because everything was done through lawyers. I didn't even have to see her. Last week, Melissa called me from an unknown number. I guess she bought a new SIM card or something, to tell me the house finally sold and the money would be deposited in our accounts soon. Her voice sounded flat, tired, and she asked me how I was doing. I told her I was fine, that my lawyer would handle everything with the money and not to call me again. She said, "Christopher, I'm never going to forgive myself for what I did." And I said, "That's your problem, Melissa, not mine." And I hung up. Now I'm focused on my work. I've been on a few dates, but nothing serious yet. I'm not ready for that and probably won't be for a while. My friends tell me they see me doing better, that I seem more relaxed, and I guess that's true. I don't regret leaving, not even a little bit. Some of my coworkers say I should have tried to fix it, that 10 years of marriage deserved a second chance, but I don't see it that way. For me, trust is everything, and when that's broken, there's no way to rebuild it. Not really. Melissa made her choice during 3 months of lies and cheating, and I made mine in that moment when I saw her kiss Brandon at that door. And that's enough for me.